expect police to patrol every street in your city, but in Chicago, officers are now avoiding entire blocks where homeless encampments have taken over. What was once America's second city has become ground zero for a crisis so severe that even law enforcement has retreated, leaving thousands to fend for themselves. The numbers behind this collapse reveal an even more disturbing reality. Chicago now counts over 46,000 homeless individuals, according to the latest 2024 point-in-time survey. That figure represents a staggering 34% increase from just 2 years ago. To put this in perspective, you're looking at a homeless population larger than the entire city of Galesburg, Illinois. The acceleration is what should alarm you most. While cities like Los Angeles and New York have seen homeless populations stabilize or grow slowly, Chicago's crisis exploded. The city added nearly 12,000 homeless individuals between 2022 and 2024 alone. That's equivalent to 100 new people becoming homeless every week for 2 straight years. Compare this to other major cities and the picture becomes even more troubling. Chicago now ranks 4th nationally in total homeless population, jumping ahead of Seattle and Boston. The rate of increase puts Chicago at the top of a list no city wants to lead. San Francisco saw a 14% increase over the same period. New York managed just 8% growth. Chicago's 34% surge dwarfs them all. City officials point to multiple breaking point indicators that emerged in late 2023. Emergency shelter capacity hit 112% occupancy by November. Hospital emergency rooms reported a 47% increase in hypothermia cases. Perhaps most telling, the Chicago Police Department logged over 8,000 quality-of-life complaints related to homeless encampments in 2024, compared to 3,200 in 2022. These numbers represent more than statistics. They reflect a system collapse happening in specific neighborhoods across the city. Walk through downtown Chicago today, and you'll see the crisis isn't spread evenly across the city. It's concentrated in specific zones that have become virtual no-go areas for ordinary residents. Lower Wacker Drive hosts the most visible disaster. Between Michigan Avenue and Lake Street, over 200 tents line the multi-level roadway system. City workers counted 187 structures during a September 2024 sweep. But within 6 weeks, the number climbed back to 215. You can smell the encampment from street level above. The West Side tells an even grimmer story. Austin, North Lawndale, and East Garfield Park now contain 43% of Chicago's total homeless population, according to the Chicago Coalition for the Homeless. That's nearly 20,000 people concentrated in just 3 neighborhoods. Vacant lots on Madison Street, west of Pulaski Road, have been transformed into sprawling tent cities housing up to 300 individuals each. Even the Loop isn't immune. Grant Park's underground pedestrian tunnels shelter an estimated 400 people nightly. Michigan Avenue retailers report a 68% increase in security incidents since 2023. Millennium Park closed its northern sections twice in 2024 for maintenance that was actually encampment removal. Perhaps most surprising is O'Hare International Airport. TSA data shows a 320% increase in individuals attempting to sleep in terminals overnight. Airport police conduct daily sweeps, but the displaced simply move between terminals or return the next evening. Within these areas, law enforcement has fundamentally changed how they operate. Chicago police officers are now operating under protocols that would have been unthinkable just 5 years ago. Beat cops openly admit they avoid certain blocks entirely during routine patrols. The Fraternal Order of Police issued an internal memo in August 2024 identifying 12 specific street segments as high-risk deployment zones. Lower Wacker Drive between Michigan and Columbus ranks at the top. Officers are instructed to patrol in pairs only and avoid foot patrol after 8 p.m. Why? 3 officers sustained needle stick injuries in encampment-related incidents during a single month in 2024. Resource allocation data tells the story clearly. The Chicago Police Department reassigned 68 officers from community policing roles to what they call quality of life enforcement in 2024. That's a 400% increase from 2022 staffing levels. Response times for non-emergency calls in high-concentration homeless areas now average 43 minutes compared to 18 minutes citywide. Perhaps most revealing are the official policy changes. Department General Order G03-02-01, updated in November 2024, now requires supervisor approval before officers can approach encampments with more than 10 individuals. The order cites escalating safety concerns and resource limitations as primary factors. Individual officers describe the reality more bluntly. "We used to clear these camps weekly," one veteran patrol officer explained. "Now we drive by and radio it in. There's nowhere to take them anyway." Arrest numbers support this. Homeless-related arrests dropped 37% in 2024, despite the population surge. This enforcement retreat has created a vacuum that reveals the economic forces driving the crisis. The economic forces pushing Chicagoans onto the streets aren't abstract market trends. They're measurable pressures crushing working families who thought they were financially stable. Consider the rent explosion. Median rent for a one-bedroom apartment in Chicago jumped from $1,400 in 2022 to $2,100 by late 2024. That's a 50% increase in just 2 years. You're looking at an additional $700 per month that most working people simply don't have. Chicago's minimum wage sits at $15 per hour, which sounds reasonable until you do the math. A full-time minimum wage worker earns $2,600 monthly before taxes. After taxes, that's roughly $2,000. How do you pay $2,100 in rent when your entire take-home pay is $2,000? Property taxes compound the problem. Cook County raised property tax assessments by an average of 13% in 2024, forcing landlords to pass those costs directly to tenants. A typical renter now pays an additional $150 monthly in pass-through property tax increases. Basic necessities have become luxury items. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, Chicago grocery costs increased 28% between 2022 and 2024. A gallon of milk that cost $3.50 in 2022 now costs $4.50. Ground beef jumped from $6 per pound to $9.20. These economic pressures are most visible in Chicago's housing market collapse. Chicago's housing market isn't just expensive anymore, it's broken. The numbers reveal a system that has completely abandoned working families. Start with basic supply and demand. Chicago needs approximately 85,000 affordable housing units to meet current demand. The city has just 27,000 such units available. That's a gap of 58,000 homes for people who can't afford market-rate housing. Every month, roughly 1,500 new households qualify as low-income, while only 200 affordable units come online. Eviction courts tell the real story. Cook County processed 43,000 eviction filings in 2024, compared to 28,000 in 2022. That's a 54% increase. You're looking at 118 families losing their homes every single day. The average time from eviction filing to actual removal dropped from 45 days to 28 days as courts streamlined the process. Foreclosure trends paint an equally grim picture. Residential foreclosures jumped 67% between 2023 and 2024, according to RealtyTrack data. Southside neighborhoods like Chatham and Auburn-Gresham saw foreclosure rates exceed 8% of all properties. Perhaps most damaging is landlord abandonment. Property owners simply walk away when maintenance costs exceed rental income potential. The city identified over 12,000 abandoned residential properties in 2024, up from 7,000 in 2022. These aren't just statistics. They're former homes that once housed families. The housing crisis affects different demographic groups in distinct ways. The face of homelessness in Chicago has changed dramatically, and the new demographics should alarm anyone who thinks this crisis only affects certain types of people. Seniors represent the fastest-growing segment. Adults over 62 now make up 28% of Chicago's homeless population, compared to just 16% in 2019. The Chicago Department of Family and Support Services counted over 12,000 homeless seniors in 2024. These aren't people who lived on the margins their entire lives. They're former teachers, factory workers, and office managers whose fixed incomes couldn't keep pace with housing costs. Family homelessness exploded even more dramatically. Chicago Public Schools identified 18,700 homeless students In the 2023 to 2024 school year, a 63% increase from the previous year. That's 1 in 25 students without a stable place to sleep at night. Veterans comprise 11% of the homeless population, despite making up just 4% of Chicago's general population. The VA counted over 5,000 homeless veterans in Cook County during 2024, with 67% suffering from mental health conditions or substance abuse issues. Gender patterns shifted significantly too. Women now represent 41% of Chicago's homeless population, up from 32% in 2020. Single mothers account for the largest increase, with their numbers doubling since 2022. For many of these groups, Chicago's harsh winters represent a life-or-death challenge. Chicago winters don't just make homelessness uncomfortable, they make it deadly. When temperatures drop below freezing for weeks at a time, living outdoors becomes a daily survival battle that many people lose. The Cook County Medical Examiner's Office recorded 47 cold-weather deaths among homeless individuals during the 2023 to 2024 winter season. That's nearly double the 25 deaths from the previous year. Most victims were found in abandoned buildings, under bridges, or in cars where they sought shelter from sub-zero temperatures. Hospital emergency rooms tell an even grimmer story. Northwestern Memorial Hospital alone treated over 300 cases of severe hypothermia in homeless patients between December 2023 and March 2024. Rush University Medical Center reported a 120% increase in frostbite cases requiring amputation compared to the previous winter. Emergency shelter capacity becomes critically inadequate when temperatures drop. Chicago operates roughly 8,000 emergency shelter beds, but demand spikes to over 15,000 during extreme cold warnings. The city opens warming centers in libraries and community centers, but these temporary solutions house only an additional 2,000 people. Consider what this means practically. When the National Weather Service issues a wind chill warning, over 4,000 people have nowhere warm to go. They huddle in CTA stations until police remove them, crowd into 24-hour businesses, or risk death by staying outside. The weather crisis exposes how the city's social services have become overwhelmed. Chicago's social safety net hasn't just frayed, it's completely snapped under the weight of unprecedented demand. The systems designed to help people are now turning them away daily. Shelter waiting lists reveal the breakdown most clearly. The Chicago Department of Family and Support Services maintains a centralized wait list that averaged 4,200 people in 2024. Average wait time for a shelter bed now exceeds 6 weeks. That's 6 weeks sleeping outdoors while your name sits on a list. Mental health services show equally devastating gaps. The city operates just 12 community mental health centers for a homeless population where 78% exhibit signs of serious mental illness. Each center serves an average of 3,800 individuals annually, but capacity allows for only 800 active cases. Do the math. That leaves 3,000 people per center without ongoing mental health support. Substance abuse treatment tells the same story. Chicago has beds for roughly 2,000 people seeking inpatient addiction treatment, but over 11,000 homeless individuals struggle with substance abuse, according to 2024 assessments. The waiting list for publicly funded treatment programs averages 4 months. Caseworker ratios have reached crisis levels. The Illinois Department of Human Services reports an average caseload of 147 clients per caseworker in Cook County. Federal guidelines recommend maximum caseloads of 25. You're looking at caseworkers handling nearly 6 times the recommended number of people. This service breakdown is reshaping entire neighborhoods and communities. Neighborhoods across Chicago are watching their communities transform as homelessness spreads beyond designated areas into residential and commercial districts. Local businesses that survived the pandemic are now closing due to homeless-related challenges. The Magnificent Mile Business Association reported that 37 retail establishments closed permanently in 2024, with 22 citing homeless encampments as a primary factor. Store managers describe daily challenges including blocked entrances, customer safety concerns, and increased security costs. CVS alone spent over $2 million on additional security for downtown locations in 2024. Public spaces have been fundamentally altered. Lincoln Park Zoo reduced operating hours after incidents involving homeless individuals camping in children's play areas. The Chicago Park District closed 9 playground facilities for renovations that were actually encampment removals. Millennium Park now employs security guards 24 hours a day. School impacts reach far beyond the 18,700 homeless students. Chicago Public Schools spent $43 million in 2024 on transportation, meals, and support services for homeless students. Teachers report classroom disruptions as hungry, tired children struggle to focus. Some schools converted unused classrooms into quiet spaces where homeless students can rest. Property values reflect the crisis clearly. Neighborhoods with visible homeless populations saw average home values drop 13% between 2023 and 2024, according to Zillow data. Areas near major encampments experienced declines up to 28%. The economic ripple effects extend to Chicago's vital tourism and business sectors. Chicago's tourism industry, worth $28 billion annually, is taking a direct hit as visitors encounter conditions they never expected in America's third-largest city. McCormick Place reported a 22% decline in convention bookings for 2025, with 12 major trade shows relocating to other cities. Event planners cite safety and aesthetic concerns in downtown areas. The Chicago Convention and Tourism Bureau estimates the city lost $137 million in convention revenue during 2024 alone. Navy Pier, which typically attracts 9 million visitors annually, saw foot traffic drop 31% in 2024. Tourist complaints increased 400%, with most referencing aggressive panhandling and visible drug use near the attraction. The pier hired 40 additional security guards and installed new fencing to control access points. Restaurant impacts hit small businesses hardest. The Illinois Restaurant Association surveyed downtown establishments and found 68% reported decreased customer traffic due to homeless-related concerns. Average dinner revenues in the Loop dropped 18% between 2023 and 2024. Some restaurants now close before dark to avoid evening foot traffic issues. Corporate relocations accelerate the economic damage. Citadel moved its headquarters to Miami in 2024, citing quality of life concerns among factors. Boeing relocated key operations to Virginia. The Civic Federation estimates Chicago lost over 4,000 high-paying jobs to corporate departures in 2024, with homelessness mentioned in 73% of exit interviews. These economic impacts have forced political leaders to confront uncomfortable realities. Chicago's political leaders have thrown money at the homelessness crisis without addressing its root causes, creating a bureaucratic maze that serves politicians better than homeless individuals. Mayor Brandon Johnson allocated $238 million for homeless services in the 2024 budget, a 47% increase from 2023. Yet the homeless population grew faster than spending. You're looking at over $5,000 spent per homeless person annually, with virtually no measurable improvement in outcomes. Policy initiatives reveal the disconnect between City Hall and street reality. The Housing First program launched in January 2024 with great fanfare, but housed just 800 people by year's end despite a budget of $62 million. That's $77,500 per person housed. Interagency coordination remains a disaster. The Department of Family and Support Services, Chicago Housing Authority, and Department of Public Health operate separate intake systems with no shared database. Homeless individuals often wait in 3 different lines for services that should be coordinated. A 2024 audit found that 37% of people seeking help gave up due to bureaucratic complexity. Federal funding utilization shows equal dysfunction. Chicago received $94 million in federal homeless assistance grants for 2024, but spent only $62 million by October due to administrative delays. The city returned over $30 million to the federal government, while thousands slept outdoors. Behind these policy debates are real people whose stories reveal the human cost. Put names and faces to those policy failures, and you see the real cost of Chicago's broken response. These aren't abstract case studies. They're your neighbors. Take Marcus, a 43-year-old Army veteran who served 2 tours in Afghanistan. He worked construction until a back injury ended his career in 2023. Veterans Affairs promised housing assistance, but the wait list stretches 18 months. Marcus sleeps in his truck outside the VA hospital on Harrison Street, where security guards know him by name but can't offer him a bed. The Hernandez family represents the new face of family homelessness. Both parents work full-time jobs. Maria cleans offices downtown for $14 per hour. Roberto drives for a delivery service earning roughly $16 hourly. Together, they make about $5,000 monthly, but rent for a two-bedroom apartment starts at $2,800. They've lived in their car with two young children since August 2024. 70-year-old Dorothy Williams exemplifies elderly homelessness. She receives $1,200 monthly in Social Security benefits. When her landlord raised her rent from $800 to $1,500, she couldn't pay. Dorothy has slept on CTA trains for 4 months, moving between lines to avoid police. She worked as a school secretary for 37 years. Even people with jobs face homelessness. The Chicago Coalition for the Homeless found that 23% of homeless adults work at least part-time, but earn too little for housing. These individual stories reflect larger patterns that suggest where the crisis is heading. Current trends point toward a mathematical certainty that should terrify anyone planning to live in Chicago long-term. The trajectory isn't slowing down, it's accelerating. Population projections based on 2022 to 2024 growth rates suggest Chicago will reach 75,000 homeless individuals by 2027. That's a 63% increase from current levels. The Illinois Housing Development Authority estimates the city adds roughly 400 new homeless people monthly, while housing only 120. Resource capacity tells an even grimmer story. Chicago's shelter system operates at 112% capacity now. If homeless population growth continues at current rates, the city would need to build 14,000 additional shelter beds by 2026 just to reach basic capacity. Current construction timelines and funding make this impossible. Seasonal patterns reveal deadly cycles. Winter 2024 to 2025 will test the system's breaking point as temperatures force more people indoors while capacity remains flat. Emergency room physicians predict cold weather deaths could exceed 70 this winter based on population increases. Other cities provide sobering comparisons. Los Angeles saw similar growth patterns between 2015 and 2018 before their crisis exploded to over 65,000 homeless individuals. San Francisco's population doubled in just 4 years. When housing costs reached critical thresholds, Chicago has already surpassed. Seattle offers perhaps the most relevant comparison. Their homeless population grew 34% between 2019 and 2022, matching Chicago's current trajectory. Understanding these trends reveals what intervention points still exist. Successful interventions exist, but they require political will and resources that Chicago hasn't demonstrated. Other cities prove this crisis isn't inevitable if leaders act decisively. Houston reduced its homeless population by 63% between 2011 and 2023 through coordinated regional planning. The key was consolidating 18 separate agencies into one unified system. Houston spent $42,000 per person to achieve permanent housing compared to Chicago's $77,500 with minimal results. Salt Lake City eliminated chronic homelessness entirely by 2015 using a simple formula. They built housing first and added services later. The program cost $22,000 annually per person versus $78,000 for emergency services and jail cycles. Utah saved $47 million while housing 4,000 people. Chicago possesses untapped resources. The city owns over 11,000 vacant properties that could be converted to transitional housing. Federal infrastructure funds include $800 million available for housing projects through 2026. Corporate partnerships remain largely unexplored, despite major businesses losing revenue to the crisis. Political feasibility represents the biggest obstacle. Aldermen avoid supporting homeless housing in their wards due to resident opposition. Mayor Johnson's administration has focused on studies rather than implementation. Every month of delay costs lives and money. Timeline considerations are critical. Houston's transformation took 12 years. Salt Lake City needed 8 years. If Chicago starts comprehensive reform in 2025, Measurable results wouldn't appear until 2030. The window for effective action may be narrowing faster than anyone realizes. Chicago's crisis represents a preview of what's coming to cities across America. This isn't an isolated problem that other metropolitan areas can ignore. It's the leading edge of a national transformation that will reshape urban life permanently. 23 major cities reported double-digit increases in homelessness during 2024, according to the National Alliance to End Homelessness. Denver saw a 32% jump. Phoenix recorded 28% growth. Austin's homeless population increased 41%. The pattern is unmistakable. Chicago's trajectory is becoming the new normal for American cities. Middle-class vulnerability has reached unprecedented levels. The National Low-Income Housing Coalition found that workers need to earn $31 per hour to afford a two-bedroom apartment in major metropolitan areas. That's $64,400 annually. Yet median household income in most cities hovers around $55,000. You're looking at a structural impossibility for millions of working families. City sustainability faces fundamental questions. Can urban centers function when significant portions of their populations live outdoors? Chicago's experience suggests the answer is no. When police avoid certain areas, businesses relocate, and tourism declines, cities lose the economic foundation that supports basic services. Personal preparation becomes essential. Build emergency savings equivalent to 6 months of housing costs. Understand your local housing market vulnerabilities. Identify early warning signs in your neighborhood. Consider housing cost stability when making career and location decisions. Chicago's homeless crisis isn't just about the people living on the streets. It's about whether American cities can remain livable for anyone.